Danny, would you like to lead us in?
No.
Yep. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Fake Philosophers. As always, I am Mike. With us, as always, is Danny, and with us, not as always, is our good friend Mike Ortiz. Mike is a creator of what we're calling the Dawnward Universe, which I am also affiliated with, and he's coming on to talk about that and a Kickstarter campaign that we're doing for a comic book called Breeze, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to play a little game of EverAfter later, where we talk about what happens after the movie ends and how it really goes down. So, Mike, let's throw it at you. Tell us about the Dawnward universe.
Oh, that's a great big loaded question there,
I
Mr.
know,
Mike.
I know.
Yeah, appreciate that. Cool. No, no worries. Not difficult at all. No, so Dawnward Universe is something that I've worked on for at least a decade now. You've been involved about the same amount of time. Um, it is set in a kind of a dystopian post-apocalyptic world following a nuclear holocaust that humanity inflicted on itself. And it's kind of putting the pieces together many, many generations into the future. That's kind of under the guise, not the guise really, but overseen by what has arisen to be sort of like mega corporations. However, they are also being overseen by a race of super soldiers called dragoons who are kind of holding their leash almost in a organized crime fashion. So it combines a lot of elements of things that we like. It combines elements of post-apocalyptic. It involves elements of cyberpunk. It involves things like with the Western genre,
Mhm.
um, military sci-fi, kind of the super soldier storyline. Yeah, it's a big old melting pot of fun ideas brought together in as cool of ways as we can do it. And for a long time, we discussed doing a comic book, and that has recently come to life with us trying to do Breeze, which is set within that world. It's set in one city, one of the big corporation city states, following a group of freelancers, mercenaries who've come together to pull off a heist against one of these mega corporations. So a self-contained story, easy way for people to jump in, good time, action-packed, very sarcastic, kind of channeling some of that 80s sort of nihilism and almost like a RoboCop vibe with some elements. So yeah, trying to bring that to life, see if we can do a nice limited print run and get more people on board for just a good time when it comes to reading comics.
Absolutely. Danny, I know you were more of a comic book reader than I was growing up.
Yep.
What would you say if, as somebody who reads comic books, what kind of questions would you have for Mike?
I think like the biggest question would be was like is there like a because this is like a story that takes place in like a vast city, is there going to be like one hero that we could kind of get behind, or is this going to be like a story that takes place over multiple arcs that culminate into something, or is it going to be more like a focused story about one person?
Sure, I think that's a fair question. So the story is centralized around anywhere between 3 to 4 characters. They're all part of the same crew. Our main sort of point of view character, though, is Gally, and she is the young hacker that they hire onto this team for this heist. So she's very excitable that she thinks this is gonna be great fun. We're gonna have a good time screwing over the mega corporation. Nothing bad can happen at all. Um, so so yeah, while we do follow other characters that are part of the team, she is still kind of the main point of view character through this. So yeah, um, the plan, the hope, the dream is the first story, the first arc, if you will, would be 4 issues, and if that went well, we would tell subsequent arcs or stories through subsequent issues. I think the goal we had originally discussed is 16 issues of 4 arcs, 4 issues per arc.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Danny, any other questions? You kind of know how to chop up comic books more than I do. That's why I'm kind of leaning on you for
Yeah.
that. No.
Were you guys planning on doing this as kind of like more of a graphic novel where you're gonna put, X amount of chapters into one book, or is this going to be like a kind of month to month or week to week kind of episodic adventure?
I mean, we would love to do month to month, week to week episodic adventure. It really comes down to resources and what we can do. So right now the plan is really just to try and launch issue one, just to kind of get it out there, get it going, get it started, see if people like it, and then use that to get the ball rolling to do issue two, with the idea being that we can complete up to issue four, which completes our first story. Those would then be collected into one trade back, which we could, mass produce, and then we would jump to the potential of trade back number two or issue number five to start the next story arc. Um, or if, everything went super well, we could follow Breeze, we could follow those characters while also bringing in more of the team to launch other stories that are set within the world, maybe loosely connected to what's going on with Breeze, but not necessarily following that specific core group of characters. Um, yeah, the idea being that this, if we can, this is the launching point. This is where we can, best case scenario, get the machine booted up so that we could tell multiple stories at the same time of multiple characters and expand out.
Yeah. I think because when we were working on the novels, which Mike, I think you were like 4 or 5, I knocked out a whole one. Um
You wrote a
uh,
novel, I wrote novellas, so you did better
Novellas,
than I
excuse
did.
me. Okay.
You did
But
better than I did.
but I know that was kind of the same idea to where we started with one group of characters, then each one we wrote kind of took a character and expanded on it. The one I wrote was more of a prequel to yours. Kind of the same idea with the comic books in a sense, assuming we get that far.
Yeah, one of the main things with the comic book that's even more, I don't want to say simple, but simple than the novellas and such is just again more of a focused story, more of a very narrow worldview of this world. We want it to be the easiest entry point for anybody that picks it up, doesn't know anything about the universe, doesn't know anything about that, and can just enjoy it and have a great time. And if they're curious about, hey, what's this bigger picture going on around them, the sky's the limit. But if not,
Mhm.
they can just enjoy a very, concentrated story.
Absolutely. One thing since I jumped on board with you guys doing Dawnward, with the novellas, even the comic and everything, is we really do get really good artists, to jump on and help us out. And I know we had if you want to go through some of the art we had queued up, screen share should still be on.
Sure.
Um,
Let me see if this works. That work?
Kinda.
yes.
There we go. Yep.
Oh, yay.
It's so beautiful.
Ooh, ah. So yeah, so this is some artwork that we had done for the city that it takes place in. It's set in what is known as Babylon.
Hmm.
It is the largest corporate city-state. It is the major hub of commerce on the continent. So a big part of that is the canal system, and the city is actually built like over top of this big river. Um, I don't know, it gives me a little bit of Gondor vibes from Lord of the Rings, but
Yeah.
in
You know
a
what? I couldn't think of it, but that was what it was. I was trying to think of it.
Well, from this image, it looks like a mix between Gondor and Asgard
okay,
from
yeah, yeah,
Thor
I see the
movies.
Asgard. I see it.
Okay.
But yeah, we really wanted to kind of sell that. Number one, obviously, it's an impossible structure that you'd never see today. Um,
The physics does not
but
apply, yeah.
yeah, but two, it's also just the fact that like how vast this thing is. Um, so the big point of the city is, as I said, is the commerce, and so its power comes from all the other companies coming together and wanting a piece of that commercial pie. They want to be involved with this trading that goes on here. So, they basically invest in the city, which makes the people who own the city very wealthy. So the people who own the city don't even really have to do a whole lot. They're not making a lot of products. They're not innovating, they're just being brokers.
Nice.
Yeah. And everyone wants to be part of the cool kids club, so they're like, yeah, take my money. So,
All
um,
right.
see if we can scroll through. Oop, did anything pop up? Did that work?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
We're on
Cool.
Batiste.
Cool. So yeah,
Baptiste,
this is
sorry.
This is Baptiste. This is one of the characters of our freelancer crew. He's kind of the gunslinger, very Western vibe, spinning a revolver, has his cool sunglasses. So he's one of the more no, I shouldn't say he's one of them. He is an experienced member of the team, um, but he also kind of left a life of being a more traditional mercenary to kind of be more underground, more less less storming the beaches and more of, you know, a scrappy outlaw. Um, so for the
Robot
comic,
arm. Yep.
yeah. So for the comic, we have two covers. You'll see the main one. This is our alt cover that we had done by a very talented artist called the Zong Brothers. So it's much more of a beach pinup vibe. Um, Situation we'd probably never see the characters in the comic for now.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, so we just wanted to have some fun with that.
It's definitely giving Dead or Alive
Yeah, beach
vibe.
volleyball vibes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. This is the normal cover, so it's the full crew
I like that.
with the city behind them. Whoop, that is way too big. Stop it, computer.
So, like, just looking at Batiste, I can see some like inspiration. What was like one of your biggest inspirations for the characters here, specifically Batiste?
So truthfully, the biggest inspiration for him is a bit twofold. The first and foremost is a gentleman that I actually work with. He's modeled after him. Um, yeah, people check all about that. The second one is he definitely has a bit of a Trigun, a little bit of Vash the
Yeah,
Stampede in there.
that's what I was picking up.
Yep. So, but I think once you kind of incorporate sci-fi with a cool duster and a big revolver,
Yeah.
you're naturally going to be like, "Hey, is that Vash?" And people are like, "No, but yes."
Mhm.
So, but no joke, this gentleman does wear those glasses. The hair and the glasses, yeah, like, and he's from Louisiana, so he has this great accent.
Oh, awesome! Like a full-blown Cajun accent.
Yep. Yep.
Dope.
Does he have a
Dope.
Yep.
robot arm too?
No, he
Yeah, he
doesn't.
does have a robot arm.
Yeah, of course he does. Um, so yeah, next to him is Gally, our young hacker extraordinaire. She has a little holographic interface that she's holding up. As I said, she's way more sprightly. She's more excited. This is exciting to her. In the center with the glowing red eye, we have our team leader. That's Synth. She's pretty robotics, pretty cybernetic, just from the look of her. She's leading this whole escapade. However, there's more to her than she wants people to know. And that's not just being like, oh, I don't want you to know that I'm sensitive. No, there's some secret that she's kind of hiding from the rest of her team about what this job really entails to her. Um, and then all the way on the right, we have Rosa. She's our bruiser, basically a cybernetic boxer. So, when combat engages, she has this kind of like jade tiger mask or jaguar mask that snaps over her face almost like a luchador mask. And then she just goes and cracks faces open with her fists.
Hell yeah.
So, but she's also the kind of like the mama bear of the team. So she likes to take care of people that are weaker than herself. And so she has a bit of, fun to her. So she's not all just like, "Grr, break things." I'm gonna pull up an actual black and white page of the comic so you can see some of the line work. Um,
God damn.
So we're pretty happy and pretty impressed with how everything has turned out. And this is
Mhm.
going to be a good example of kind of where some of what we will talk about in just a minute comes from. So we were getting these turned in. We were looking at these lines. We were looking at these black and whites, and we just all really were blown away. We thought they were great, which led to this question that a lot of people brought up. They're like, "Well, aren't you going to color them?" And I was like, "That was originally the idea." And they're like, "Well, these look so good. Do you want to do that?" Um, which is a good segue to what we ultimately chose to do,
Hmm.
which is we did a selective color.
Hell yeah.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more film noir kind of vibe. But this way, one of the aspects we're doing is anything we want to highlight in color, we can. Anything we want to pop and stand out, we have the ability to do that. One of the things we have is that all the main characters, anyone of significance to the story, will have an element of color about them. So even though they might live in a gray world, they themselves have a pop to help them stand out. And that's also like a visual signal to the reader that if someone does have a color trace on them, that you know they'll have some significance to the story.
Kind of directing the eye a little bit.
Right. And in the
Yep.
same way,
Yeah.
we also wanted things like muzzle flashes, screens, blood, anything like that to have a little pop of color.
And so this character right here, is this because I'm seeing kind of like the twinge of red coming from her eye. Is this
So
the
this
character
is,
that
yeah,
was
this is Synth. This is the team leader. So this is her. You can see her working on her arm over here, looking out over the city.
kind of
Um,
decompressing, having a smoke?
yeah, again, very, very film noir kind of vibe.
Yeah, I dig it,
Um,
man. That's dope.
so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hash work when it comes to kind of what the artist has done. Um, yeah, there's nice panels. I can escape that.
What I really like is that there's a bit of like futurism involved in this panel specifically, where it's like, yeah, we realize that in the future everything's going to be controlled by a corporation, and like very heavily like Blade Runner influence here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty hard to have cyberpunk without some element of Blade Runner influence.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is one of the properties that created the genre,
Hmm.
especially the visual of the genre.
Yeah.
I've been a pretty big fan of cyberpunk for a very long time, but also it was one of those things, it's crazy to talk about, where I didn't know what it was. And I remember being, I think I was like 22, and I discovered like, oh shit, that's what this thing is. That's what this genre that I've always thought was super cool is called. Like it's a thing. Um, and that like blew my mind. And so yeah, that definitely has led me over the years down kind of a winding path of pursuing various media or, books like William Gibson with his Neuromancer, um, the those series of books that he wrote, which basically jump-started cyberpunk as a genre. So yeah, as much as we can try to channel some of that homage, the better. So I'll pull up some more pages for you guys.
Mhm.
So shots of the city, it's people coming and going, trying to have as mix of possible of, aesthetics and vibes. It's a large city, so it's a metropolis, so it's people from all over coming together. Different levels of cyberization. So some
Hmm.
people have, basic augments, and some people might have more than that. Again, you can also see that concept where like all this crowd, even though they've got some nice detail on them, they don't have color on them.
Yeah. It's almost like color is like a signifier of wealth.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. I
Hmm.
like that. Hmm.
I remember this one.
More of it. We got our team coming together, having a talk. Nice little holographic display that Synth pulls out. Again, showcasing some of the aspects of color there. Oh, that doesn't work. That didn't work either. Oh well, life goes on. Um, so this is some of the key art that we have for Galley.
That's great.
So, um,
And the cat.
and the
And the
cat,
cat.
And the cat.
who will come to play in the comic. So
Mhm.
there's more to that cat than meets the eye.
Well, if you hold it out, it'll swallow people.
I thought you were gonna say if you hold it out, it'll slice you.
That too.
Um, in all honesty, Glennie knows this as well. The cat is based on the cat I used to own.
Oh yeah,
So
100%.
she's forever immortalized in art there. So a little bit of a
And does the cat kind of function as like Galley's familiar? Sorry, D&D nerd.
no, I was like, I don't want to be giving away spoilers.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, fair enough.
I'll say this, the cat becomes important to the plot.
Okay,
So,
As they always do.
yeah.
um, as they always. So one of the things that we're doing with the Kickstarter is if we reach our goal, we're going to be doing some stickers for people. Um, so we have a nice little chibi galley here. We're gonna have like one of the company logos is the sticker. She likes to drink like an energy drink, so we're gonna do that can as a sticker. They fight against a mercenary company called the Sesame Leopards. So their logo is gonna get turned into a sticker. So that'll be a fun little thing that we can try and kind of get going for people. Uh, Got a mock up here of the comic itself with the cover, the alternative beach-tastic art. So this is going to be a Kickstarter exclusive, so we're not going to, even if we go forward, we're not going to produce this cover um, in any other physical form after this. So it's going to only be available for this specific Kickstarter. This is another little section of the city. This is one of my favorite ones, and this is one that might even get more art in the future because I like it that much.
Mhm.
So the city is very large, as we discussed, and there's different aspects and areas and districts, and one of them is basically a place where over the years various companies have dumped off physical refuse, physical old ships, trawlers, ferries, tugs, large cargo containers, aircraft that are defunct, just basically a mass graveyard of those things. And over time, people have cannibalized them into living spaces. And so it is a massive twisted pile of trash that they've turned into this like maze complex of housing. And it's lovingly called Rubbishton in the city. It's literally a ton of rubbish. Um, so yeah, so as I said, like this is even have some other sketches that the artist did for this just because of how much. But you can see, yeah, there's like there's ships in here. Um, so it's kind of a cool space, and hopefully we can explore it a little more as the story goes on.
Now, is the
Um,
whole city kind of comprised this way, or is this kind of like a favela on the outskirts of the city?
this is just one of the districts of the city.
Okay.
So the city is going to be divided into multiple sectors. Uh, Eventually, we're hoping to do a map so you can kind of get a full layout. The hope and dream is to maybe even do like an RPG book, like a tabletop RPG book.
Yeah.
So you'd have a layout of the city where you can have the sectors and see, where the train lines connect and all that kind of stuff for the purposes of gaming and for GMing and stuff. Um, so yeah, the center of the city, that big spot, the big Minas Tirith Gondor that rises up, that's Babylon proper. That's like the home of the corporation. That's where everyone wants to go. It's that place where you might work a terrible factory job and hate life and God, but if you work hard enough, you might get that lottery ticket that lets you go there for a week, all
Mhm.
expenses paid. So you'll slave away to the company for that distant hope that maybe you'll be the chosen one. And then, yeah, you have a place like this, like Rubbishton, where it's just kind of like all the crap that's gotten thrown over. There's another area along the canal, which is called the sludges, where all the garbage and the sewage and like the toxic waste has been dumped. But even that is a place where people have come and started living because you don't got to pay taxes if you're floating on a little ferry that's, slowly burning in toxic acid. Um, but of course, like all things, it's not really good to have toxic dump near normal water wells. So maybe things are seeping into places they don't want them to go.
Doesn't
Um,
sound familiar at all.
no. So I'm going to pull up the map real quick of the world itself, and we can actually go and check out where Babylon is. So there it is at the head of the river, going all right here to the inner sea, which kind of connects it as this big lifeline for the continent. So, but behind it is just desert. So it's one of those places that in theory shouldn't be this big or really truly exist in any sort of grand capacity, because it's just got wasteland behind it.
Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Viva.
just just this kind of like oasis that exists. Nobody knows how or why, it just does.
Just grown up over time, and as you kind of created a like a scarcity and that need to be involved when it you just sort of gathered people together. Um, the company that controls it is called the Omnicore. Kind of a little bit of their background is way back in the day. They were their own sort of mercenary company, and they sort of secured this as like a watering hole in the middle of nowhere. And just over time, it's just grown up, and since it's been under their care, they're the ones that own it and run it, and they've shed their, military ways ages ago and have become, proper capitalists. We got a dossier here for Synth. You can see she does have a face under the mask.
Base for radio, yeah.
Yeah, very ghoulish.
Yes, very ghoulish. So she's got a gun built into the one arm that she can deploy out. A whole bunch of magazines strapped on her belt there. And
Now,
this
does
is
she wear the mask just to cover up her features, or is there a function to the mask as well?
it's a bit of both. Some of it's cosmetic and the rest of it's also to kind of help filter air. We're also kind of assuming that if she's having this amount of degradation or damage on her face, that she might have this similar affliction internally, so it might help with her ability to breathe. So it's also important to note that in such a world where people can, swap out limbs and do all sorts of stuff, it's not unlikely that she had enough money. She could probably get something cosmetically done if she
Hmm.
truly wanted. So it's a little bit of a statement that she would choose not to. So then we have the dossier here for Rosa. Apparently, she really likes the Los Angeles Lakers.
Good.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
The
Other
Celtics,
than
sir. The
I was,
Celtics.
I was going to say, other than
Then
Celtics fans, who doesn't?
debate for the Celtics fans, we got the mask.
Yeah, there you go.
You see, the world has truly come together.
Hardest of
Um,
times.
but yeah, you
Now,
could. Hmm.
well, because I know a little bit about the world. Is there kind of like one or more Zaibatsu that kind of run this city?
So, what Danny used there is the term Zaipatsu, which is like a term for a mega corporation. So, no. So, as I said, the Omnicore is the ones that own and operate the city. There are plenty of other corporations, Zaibatsus, that are inside the city, but they are all just kind of trying to ensure they have a piece of this pie. So, they might own docks or factories or trading centers or anything like that, but they're still beholden to Omnicore, and they still don't want to do anything that would piss them off because again, if you get exiled from Eden, you're now eating, you're scavenging for scraps. And there are corporations that aren't allowed, such as the Gaten Corporation, who's appeared in other of our media, and they're kind of like little vulture dickheads that nobody likes. So they're not allowed at the big boys table. In the context of the world, other than kind of having this stranglehold over such a large trading area, Omnicorp also has they get some of their power and some of their wealth from basically poaching or buying anyone who invents something that they can find. So if you were in your garage and you were like, dude, I made a monowheel. This thing's sweet. Oh, people might like this. And you posted it online, it's possible an Omnicorp agent would show up and be like, would you like a suitcase of money? You're like, I don't know. And they're like, or I could give you this bullet. Which would you like?
Hmm.
And so then they don't have to make anything. They don't have to design anything. They literally just acquire.
So
As long as
Netflix kind of.
So, yeah. So if you just gobble up the independence, then yeah, your life's a lot easier.
Omnicorp presents.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, well, hopefully
Dun-dun.
their movies are better than not than Netflix.
That's the hope. That's the dream.
Um,
We're just kidding, Netflix. Please sponsor us.
Give us money.
Give us money.
So this is an older piece of artwork, but it's still very valid for Breeze. Just kind of
Punchy.
showing the dichotomy between very old world aesthetics mixed with high tech elements as well. So, and some of the world also is that fact where people clinging to this future that they don't quite understand and a past they don't quite understand or even remember, but they're kind of caught between it because they don't know anything else. The only things they have about human history are things that have been found and kind of shared publicly.
I have always liked this image. I don't know why.
I mean, it's supposed to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two opposites in the same page.
Yeah, yeah.
And if this little girl's walking down the street with that dog, I guarantee you nobody's coming to bother her.
Well, because it's funny because this girl sees this dog as like a loyal pet, but everybody who's looking at this girl is seeing this thing as like a monster guardian type
Sure.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's possible her parents decided, oh, you know what? Maybe the streets are a little dangerous with who knows what punks and cultists and all the other riffraff that have emerged. Make sure that, you can get to the park safe.
They got her a pit bull.
Now, another thing that's an element of the universe itself is that um, pure robots are illegal. They're considered taboo. They're forbidden. So every kind of machine like this, any kind of drone or whatever, needs to be tethered to a human operator. So this image alone could be interesting because this dog could be synced to her, and she is controlling it, even if it's subconsciously, like it's inside of her brain. Or it could be her parents. They could be at work working while one of them monitors and protects their child via this robotic avatar, if you will.
Hmm.
Or they hired a security company to operate it. But again, they can't just have, the Bow Wow 9000 come out and go be like bleep blop bloop blop. Because again, anything that's a machine like this needs to have a human sync to it for the purposes of it not being taboo.
And so the next question that comes up is why is that taboo? What events led to we'll call it AI being taboo
So, I mean, there was
without
no,
spoiling
no,
anything.
I was gonna say, there was a nuclear apocalypse. Had to come from somewhere.
Have you seen Terminator, Danny?
I have. Big fan. Big fan.
Yeah. And
Just,
I will say, Mike, your biggest mistake was calling it the Bow Wow 9000 because that's not going anywhere.
I disagree. You don't know. You don't know.
It's not going anywhere.
You owe me nothing. Um, so yeah, like every good cyberpunk setting, you got to have actual punks.
Mm-hmm. Got to have a
So,
mohawk in there somewhere.
I mean, it's not cyberpunk without a mohawk.
A pink mohawk.
I think you're colorblind. That's more purple.
No, agree, disagree.
I would say fuchsia.
Nice. Look at you. Look at you
That
pulling
riding that
out the
fence, yeah.
words. So another punk, just a bit of a different aesthetic. This was originally done as some book art way back in the day, but we've liked it so much that she's hung around and had a multi-life.
Is she now a character?
She is not in the comic as a character,
Okay.
um, but yeah, there's all sorts of graffiti on her jacket and stuff, and she's even got, I don't know if you can see in her eyes,
Oh yeah.
With those implants?
contacts, whatever, cyber optics.
Mm-hmm.
Money, money, money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her jacket says "Make money, not war." Um, some older artwork that does feature Galley doing her hacking business. This was done by the artist that does do our comic book pages. This is just a much older image that we had done. We had a lot of ideas for things to do in terms of kind of expanding the universe or just kind of expanding people's access to it. And we had considered doing almost like a source book, like a world book. Um, and so this was an image that had been done a couple years ago for, when we wanted to discuss freelancers. Because within this context of this world, if you want to have any sort of safety or security or, a chance of real future, you work for a mega corporation. They own these large city states. Outside of them, regardless of whether it's reality or propaganda, is inhospitable and dangerous. That's where things roam that might try and kill you or eat you. So you stay within the walls of these city states, you work for the company, and maybe one day they'll, give you a real position where you get to own a house with a pool or whatever your dream is. Um, so it's a little bit of a grim existence for humans, but within that same structure, there is a kind of lifeline to some form of freedom, which is to become a freelancer. These companies hate each other and constantly want to screw each other over, or they want to acquire more resources to outproduce somebody else or whatever. And so they'll often hire almost expendable resources, right? They want deniability so that they can go and F over their opposition and not get in trouble or cause a corporate war. So that's where the concept of freelancers come. And so you have dozens of people every day deciding, you know what, hell with this. I can buy a 45. I've seen that they're not that expensive, and I can be a badass. I've gone on the internet. And if they get a nice enough contract, they can try. Um, and some of them do become very successful and very famous, and they kind of get like a huge following. They become like pop idols in a way because their exploits serve as distractions for the normal population. So it's almost this big cycle where the corporations will strangle its citizenry so that some leave to become, soldiers of fortune so that they can get sponsored by a corporation so the so the corporation can just keep feeding that cycle. Very 1984 in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't, as I said, that doesn't stop people every day from, deciding I'm going to set out and I'm going to become famous. I'm going to get my billboards and my shoe deal and my podcast. Um,
And then they die.
yes, a lot of them die in nameless ditches.
As do the podcasters.
I was to say, it doesn't bode well for you, Mike.
Dun 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 dun. Uh, this is another piece we've had done for quite a while, actually, which also has Galley in it.
Did she
Are
have
they
the
playing
robot arms in the other
Scrabble?
ones?
Yeah. What'd you say, Danny?
Oh, sorry.
Are they playing Scrabble?
No, they're playing, I think it's Shogi.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with shogi.
It's like a Japanese board game. Um,
Do your research, Mike. Fuck.
oh yeah, geez,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'd want to go to Google.
I mean, that was kind of just a way to show, again, that kind of melting pot of cultures. That's very indicative of cyberpunk and also an element of our world where if human history has been nuked backwards, everything has kind of come together in, not a very large area. So anything over time that has been found or scavenged has kind of just been lumped into one small space.
I've always liked this one.
Yeah, yeah, it's got some cool aesthetic to it.
Some
Very
Easter eggs, if you
speakeasy.
know. Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, this was done, I think, in, geez, maybe 2017, maybe 2018. So Galley's been around for a while.
Yeah.
In the booth across from them, the two military looking guys, are those dragoons?
Those are dragoons, yes. Those are
Yep.
the super soldiers that I had mentioned earlier that kind of have a stranglehold over the corporations. They believe that they have been created for the purpose of shepherding humanity into a new future, kind of ensuring our survival. And they take that cause with almost a no, not with almost with an authoritarian mindset.
Hmm. Yes.
That they You remember when I mentioned taboo? That's not something that humans beings necessarily created in terms of, hey, that's bad. That's something that is maintained and essentially created and enforced by dragoons. Someone might find you, ugh, uncouth and maybe a little like scandalous if you're doing taboo. A dragoon will come and shoot you.
Hmm.
And they'll say it's because I need to defend humanity and protect them. So yeah, they
They're
good
very
people.
nice. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yay! But again, it's also that concept to kind of remind the Zaibatsu, the corporations, that they might think they have this infinite power, but there's literally an armored super soldier in the shadows behind them with a shotgun to their head, going, "Nope, you are going to do what we say, or you are going to die,
Hmm.
and we will peel you apart." Which is actually, lo and behold, hey, there's some artwork that we have had for a minute
I
of that
like that.
exact thing happening.
Yep.
This also is fun because on the left is essentially Synth. It's not quite the character that we have from that's in the comic, but it is derived from her.
They might as well have been. Yeah.
And she has a forearm gun.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Badass.
All right.
So yeah, this is kind of again a very visual cue of, dragoons telling the corporations, you'll do what we wish, or you will find yourselves on the down our sights.
Or you won't. All right. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
So yeah, there's just some of the artwork. Obviously, there's more, but just cool little things that we can share with people to kind of
Yeah.
show how far we've come.
Though I always like perusing the artworks. So,
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
that's half the joy is being able to have some sort of visual storytelling that we can do.
And then, so we have the Kickstarter going right now. We just launched that last week.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to link to that. And obviously any contributors would be great because it's going to be, I think, a kick-ass comic and it would launch and push forward a lot of cool stuff going forward as well.
Yeah, I mean it's also just kind of a chance for people to kind of get on the ground floor of something starting and then also support indie comics. I know that there's a lot of people now that are kind of curious to see what other creative stories they can follow, and here's an opportunity to jump in on one for pretty cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna include the link to the Kickstarter, the link to the Dawnward Universe website, and all that good stuff in in the captions. And then so Mike, as we discussed, we're gonna do a little segment that we like to call Ever After. We've done it a few times on the podcast here, where we take a movie, a show, a any sort of story, and we talk about what happens after the movie ends, after the story ends. And after the discussion we had, we've landed on Demolition Man, we're talking about sci-fi, Demolition Man. Danny, what happens at the end of Demolition Man? Remind the viewers.
So at the end of Demolition Man, the guy who created this kind of it's weird because it's almost like an authoritarian utopia.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I was like, I don't know how to phrase it. I'm gonna let you.
yeah. The guy who creates this authoritarian utopia is essentially killed and exposed as kind of like a corrupt fraud, leaving all the people that supported him and in a way kind of worshipped him, kind of going, well, what do we do now? And it's up to a guy who was frozen,
John Spartan.
John Spartan.
The names in this
Great
movie,
name,
man.
great name. Um, they kind of look to him as to like, well, what do we do now? And I don't. The funny thing is, like, this guy would not be a leader of man. Um, he would not be the guy you turn to, be like, hey, help us carry our civilization into um, the next utopia, which is funny. But I believe like the people of this world would turn to him, and he'd be like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Let's bring back red meat and swearing. That should be a start. Um, but I ultimately believe like the people would be like, yeah, let's bring back all the things from the '90s that were awesome.
So that's.
And
Are we getting to what you think is gonna happen now?
yes, yes.
Okay.
What would happen was John Spartan would be like, yo, you have some good ideas, but there are some ideas here that are just fucking stupid. Freedom of speech is awesome. Let's bring that back so we can curse and not get ticketed for cursing. Red meat's fucking awesome. Let's bring back red meat and eat red meat. Um, the whole like radio channel with the oldies that are all like fucking like commercial ads.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
I
Don't you
don't know
dare
if that
touch my
was
Taco Bell though.
so
I
yeah,
knew
that
you
was
would defend Taco Bell. I knew it.
yeah.
I knew it.
Taco Bell needs to go away.
Oh,
Yeah, I
throwing
fucking
blows,
said it.
throwing blows.
Um, there. So the only reason Taco Bell and this people have
They
looked at this and
won
been
the
like, yeah.
fast food wars.
So the only reason Taco Bell would win the fast food wars, and people have looked into this and been like, yeah, of course they would, is that because they flew under everybody else's radar, and so nobody gave them the fucking time of day, and they were able to like outlast.
The
They didn't
dark
do
horse
anything to win the
emerges.
war.
They
They just
rise
survived.
by the power of the chalupa and the nacho cheese. We are victorious.
But I mean, like, if there was like a physical like fast food war, could you imagine like we sent in the gordita bomb?
There was a physical fast food war. Arby's would win based on the toxicity. But that aside,
We have the meats and the guns.
anyway, Taco Bell, going back
Would
to it.
McDonald's just have stormtroopers? I mean, like Star Wars level, like shitty
Oh yeah,
stormtroopers. They're like, we just have a
yeah,
lot of them. They can't
yeah,
shoot anything. They're all 15 years
They're
old with
based on their
acne.
numbers.
yeah. They got the
Deploy.
numbers. Over 99 billion served.
Sorry, I'm just picturing Ronald posing in like
Oh yeah,
Nuremberg, like
yeah. General McDonald.
Grimace is
Let's say
Grimace is Goering.
Colonel Grimace.
And then, but then KFC, they do have a legit Colonel Sanders.
It's true. It's true. Wendy's is just got Dave.
They got Wendy.
Oh yes, that's frightening.
All right.
Wendy, their dominatrix general.
Now,
Now, yeah.
Danny, did we discover your kink?
Yep. Yep.
Don't go on
You
that
did.
man's search history.
Discover.
Do not look at my search history.
Taco
Rule
Bell does have the dog.
34, Wendy's.
Mhm.
I have to Google that now.
Yep.
Anyway, Demolition Man.
Yeah, so I would believe like because like the way they left the movie was like, well, the guy who like created our whole way of life is a fraud. What do we turn to now? And the way they set it up was like, okay, they're going to turn to John Spartan to lead them, who is the worst fucking person to lead a civilization into the future.
Sure.
Because he's a very flawed individual. And but that's kind of like the point of the whole movie is like, yes, you have this perfect utopian society, but it sucks in a way, and the only way you can make it better is with, flaws. That's what makes people human, and everybody else here is kind of robotic in the way that they approach society.
Right.
And so they look to this flawed, heavily flawed human being to kind of, hey, lead us into the next iteration of our civilization. And what I believe would happen is he would literally just take it back to the 90s, um, and kind of create this the it kind of ends up being like this Ouroboros of society where it's like going in a circle where it's like it's shitty, it's great, it's shitty, it's great, it's shitty, it's great, and the wheel just keeps turning.
I thought he like said no. Hold on. I'm looking it up because I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I thought Spartan pretty much is like, no, I'm not going to lead. Like, you guys need to figure it out.
I mean, yeah, he kind of does, but like, you got to remember, like everybody that exists in this society is very much a child
They don't know how to run
because
anything.
they don't know how to do anything without their leader.
Right.
Whereas
Almost sounds
John
like a
Spartan,
cult.
yeah, it's very much it's a society built around a cult. Um, but John Spartan is the one free will, free thinking individual in this society.
I use toilet
So
paper.
yeah, free seashells right there. Free
Wait,
seashells.
seashells, shells, Taco Bell shells. It makes sense. Um,
He doesn't know how to use the three seashells.
yeah, I think it's if in that situation, it's gonna be the same thing that like end up if it's Spartan, it probably won't be Spartan, but if they end up following someone else, they'll just like develop the cult around that person, then
Well,
that person will just keep doing the same thing. That's what I think.
I want to I want to say at the end of the movie, like, you got your buddy Glenn.
Yeah.
Um, he teams up with Edgar Friendly, Dennis Leary, and together the two of them are supposed to like kind of make a society happen.
All right, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So you get that authoritarian utopian guy and associate Bob, Glenn, and then you get the kind of underground punk aesthetic from Dennis Leary's character Edgar Friendly. Uh, and together they're supposed to make this new society. That's like a hybridization of the
Well,
illegal,
yeah.
the immoral, and the utopian.
Yeah. I still think in that situation that nothing changes. That
I mean, there
they'll
there would be changes, absolutely.
yes, because the world's changed because of John Spartan and all this stuff, but like at the end of the day, I think everyone in that world, if it's one of those things like if you're not born a free thinker and you're not born like that, you've lived this life where you're kind of directed in this. As an adult, you're not going to really even want to go
Yeah,
that direction. So as soon as one of these people just, fills that vacuum of power, it's just gonna kind of go back to what it was, except they're like, we're different now because instead of following X, we're following Y, and Y is obviously better than X.
but I want to say what was his name? Cocteau,
I have the wiki
the
up, I can look. Which guy?
the authoritarian leader
Oh, Hawthorne,
Cocteau,
yeah,
right?
Cocteau, yeah.
I want to say like his idea for a utopian society was is essentially everybody does what I say. I am the god king, and my word is law.
I mean, it is the most
Um
effective form of government.
it is. It is. Um and like he decided like, you know what? I'm going to shepherd this civilization into a new a new utopia. And whether or not that makes my people smart or free thinkers. I don't care as long as they do what I want. And so it was very much a point like, yeah, everybody here is kind of ignorant and stupid, but we have peace. So is it okay then? As long as there's peace, is it okay that everybody is kind of ignorant and doesn't really know what's going on?
Demolition Man right here.
All right, Mike, what do you think? What happens after? Danny and I have had it shit out. What do you think?
Oh, I think it goes to shit.
Oh, so
100%.
so I think it stays the same. Danny thinks it gets better. You think it's shit.
I think crime just takes over. I think part of the story, again, like Danny was saying, is yeah, they're almost like children, but they're also kind of taught to repress all their passions and
Hmm.
emotions, and now that's gone. And now you have a fully fledged adult society of people who are going to be obsessed with sensation. And they've also been exposed to extreme violence.
Hmm.
And it is going to, I think they might come around as long as they survive. But I think for a good spell, it's going to get to be the worst of the 80s in like a small capsule, where sex, drugs, rock and roll, and ultra violence rule the streets.
So Mad Max in
Mm,
LA.
Well, you
yeah.
forgot you forgot you forgot rat burgers.
Oh, right. Yep. Um, but yeah, because again, like part of the, Sandra Bullock is like, what? I kissing people? Oh my gosh, it's magical. And Rob Schneider's like, what? Power? This is great. And swearing. Um, and then they're like, we had machine guns in this museum loaded this entire time?
So you're thinking an extremely steroided, pumped up Catholic schoolgirl syndrome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Not necessarily championed, but if you think about it, right? What was John Spartan known for?
Demolishing things.
Yes, demolishing things as law enforcement, bringing down those big bad guys. He's gonna inadvertently and subconsciously create things to take down.
Mm,
Okay.
Simon's gone.
yeah.
He's
Gotta
even
fill the
whether
void.
he
He's got
realizes
he's
it
got
or
to
not.
create a bad guy. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it's even not necessarily by his direct actions. It could be by kind of the fallout of the things he's done or the way he kind of perceives the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
All
think
right.
I think it's gonna become anarchy for a hot minute, and some really ugly cars are gonna get smashed into some really sterile looking buildings.
Some Cybertrucks are gonna smash into fucking LACMA.
Yes.
Jesus. All right. I like that. It's like we all hit different parts of that spectrum.
Mm.
But that's the beauty of the movie and the three seashells.
The three
The
seashells.
three seashells. That's
Three
what really is going on
seashells.
here. Yes.
Three.
Yep.
The three seashells.
To all those paying attention to Danny's background, it all
I
comes
didn't
together.
realize it until we just literally started talking, and then I went, that's why it's background.
Yep.
Yep.
This whole time.
The whole time.
All right. Cool. Well, let's wrap it up. Once again, well, first, Demolition Man. So we have one of three scenarios. One, Danny's scenario, where everything gets better in Demolition Man. My scenario, where I think nothing changes, and Mike's scenario, which I shouldn't be surprised about, where everything's just shitty again. Just really
Yep.
shitty, anarchy, Catholic girl syndrome, Catholic schoolgirl syndrome.
Did the Catholic schoolgirls, like shoot up malls and stuff?
The Catholic schoolgirl syndrome is like a girl goes to Catholic school
Yes, I get it.
and then likes to fuck.
I just feel like I just feel like I was like ultra violence, and you're like, yeah, Catholic schoolgirls. And I was like,
Catholic
Same
school.
thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same thing. Same
It's
thing.
it's 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 just, I'm guessing what the essentially you mean is like repression leads
right,
to
yes.
To
yes
fucking.
to fucking yes.
To Mindy Leeing, Danny. Um,
Oh yeah, close to home. Love
I'll
you,
explain
Mindy.
that later, Mike. Yeah. And then as we discussed in the first portion, Ortiz and I would love if you checked out our Kickstarter for Breeze and just check out the Dawnward Universe in general, and we'll include those links in the descriptions. Um, and yeah, Mike, anything else you want to throw in there?
Yeah, just if you liked what you saw and want to check out a cool comic, feel free to go to the Kickstarter and donate just a few schmeckles and try and help us get going.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
A few seashells, a few tacos. Right. Okay, I think we're
Tacos
good to
every
go.
day.
Danny, you don't understand how mad you made Mike when you started insulting Taco Bell, by the way. I know it. I know it. But
Sorry,
anyway,
man.
thank you everyone for joining us again, and we'll see you next time.
Recording stopped. Stop recording. There we go.